Hi guys, welcome to another Rossi audio video. And today we're going to talk about these babies here. I got them in before the weekend. I went and picked them up. I think it was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, something like that. Thursday it was last week. These are the Vandersteen Model 2 that was made in the late 70s up until early 80s. And I have done some testing with them and they work. They are in good working condition. They need a little bit of cleaning. The socks, as we call them. I need to clean the socks on them. They don't have any rifts or holes or anything, so I don't need to change them out. They've been in a storage unit, so they're a little bit dirty, but a little bit of cleaning and I think they will be okay. They have some nicks on the wood top and on the bottom. But hey, what can you expect after 35, 40 years, you know? So, condition-wise, I want to say they're not very good. They're not mint, but they're in good condition. And without cleaning, they can probably become close to very good, I guess. Now, these came, as you can see, these came with the metal base. I think the metal base, from what I was reading online, the metal base back in the day was an optional thing that you had to buy separately. So I got the metal base. However, I do not have the spikes that you can screw into them, so I have to look for some spikes that can fit into the already screw holes that are made in the metal base, because this is a metal base. And what I think I'm gonna do, I think I'm gonna take the base off, sand it down and repaint the base, because it has like wear and tear and some surface rust to it. So I think I'm gonna, when I decide to, this week or later this week, when I clean the sock, clean the wood, I think I'm going to take the metal base off and repaint it. Now, how do they sound? To be honest, I have not put them through a big test. So far, I've done what I call a moderate early listening test. That means I just hooked them up for 15-20 minutes, did a quick test on them. And what I did, since I have sold the amp that I have used for the other ones, I sold the Radio Shack amp. That means when I tested these ones, and these demands a little bit more power than the Techniques, the Advent, the Klipsch, and the Bose. These for sure needs more power than the other ones. The Technique SP7000A also needs more power than the others, but for some reason these are not very, very efficient. Probably low 90s, I would guess, around 90, 91, 92 maybe at the most. So what I did, I used the Carver PXM 450. So I got about 150 watts per speaker when I did the test. I feel, however, that to do a proper test on these, you probably need an amp that is like 250 watt per channel. Then you probably drive these speakers with what they want and what they need. These speakers needs about 250 watts per speaker. I haven't checked them up too much when it comes to specifications. So, but I assume that these are 8 ohms. So they can fit most amplifiers on the market, and bigger receivers and bigger integrated amplifiers. I would not hook these up to smaller receivers. And when I say small receivers, I mean in the class of 20 to 75 watts per channel. You will not get the best result out of, and you will not get the best sound out of these speakers when you use small receivers with these speakers. The Vandersteen Model 2 needs a good amp with good power. So when that is said, now, how did I think the sound was? Well, I was sitting here in my chair, and I had the speakers. I removed the Technics, and I removed the theater research speakers over there, and I put them as far away as I could from what I'm sitting here. So the listening distance was about 8 to 9 feet, maybe 10 feet at the most at the time of listening. And at that distance, it was no listening fatigue at all with 150 watt amplifier power to each speaker. So they were very, very comfortable to listen to. There was nothing bad that stood out. Sometimes older speakers can be like a little bit harsh, a little bit anemic, or a little bit boomy, or something like that. You know, back in the day, it was not like now. And of course, I did research back then too. But if you listen to old speakers, they have a very distinct sound ID and sound charisma. And these have also their own sound ID and their own little sound spice, as I call it. But they're also very natural, very, very linear. I want to say that right now, these are the best speakers in here of the hi-fi speakers that I have in here. The most correct sounding one, for sure. They maybe don't have the same bass, the same output, the same punch as the 15-inch from the Technics. But when it comes to sound quality and stuff like that, the Vandersteen Model 2 is, of course, a better sounding speaker, a more correct sounding speaker. The Technics SB7000A is not far behind at all. Don't get me wrong, they're very good speakers too. But I want to say that the Vandersteen are very, very good speakers, very correct sounding speakers, and probably was high-end speakers back in the day when they came out in 1977, 78, 79, 80, something like that. I think they went up to about mid-80s. And they're still making Model 2. Today they're called the Model 2 Signature Series or something like that. So these have been on the market since 1977. And there's a reason for that. You know, once you hit a good concept, why bother go away from it? Good speakers. Now, would I recommend these speakers? Of course. Like I said, good sounding speakers, very natural sounding speaker, very linear, very pleasant to listen to, very correct sounding. So if you have an amp or you have a receiver or an integrated amplifier that can give you 150, 200, 250 watts per channel, then you have enough power to drive these. Anything less than that, I wouldn't even think about it. You get sound, but you don't explore the full potential of the speaker. The drivers are not huge, but these are one of those type of speakers that even with small drivers, they demand their amplifier, and they demand the correct amplifier. Now, the Carver that I used is a Pro Audio amplifier, so of course it's not a high-end hi-fi amplifier. So if you have a high-end amplifier or a hi-fi amplifier, of course the sound can maybe even be better. But Carver is some of the best Pro Audio amplifiers out there when it comes to sound quality. And it was a good match for the Vandersteens. The only thing that I have to say about the Vandersteens that is a little bit unusual is the speaker connectors and the speaker terminals in the back here. You have to have banana plugs. That's how it is. And they have separate for tweeters and mid-range and for bass. So I guess these only can be bi-amped or B-amped, because that's what I had to do when I was running the amplifier on these. I had to have separate connections to the bass, the tweeter, and the mid-range. So that's another thing that you have to think about when you run amplifiers on these. You have to have an amplifier that are stable in 4 ohm, and that has the possibility of doing bi-amp, and that you can bi-amp these speakers with. So if you don't have an amplifier that can do 4 ohm, because basically if you have a receiver, you can use speaker A and B, and if you do that, then the receiver will see 4 ohm. That's how it is. So just remember, when you use speaker A and B on your receiver, if you have a good receiver, let's say 100 watts or more per channel, that receiver should be rated to be able to do 4 ohms, because most receivers are 8 ohms if you run either channel speaker A or speaker B. And then most of the receivers have you could do the switching over to both speakers A plus B, but then you are running 4 ohm on the receiver, the amplifier output on the receiver. So just remember that these are demanding quite a bit from the amplifier. Small receivers like that, 25, 30, 40 watts, stay away. Don't even think about it. And because this is what I'm talking about here. You can see on this Sansui here, you know, we have right, left, speaker A and B, and you would use speaker A's for the meter and the twids, the mids and tweeters, and you would use B for, let's say, the woofer. This Sansui is okay for 4 ohm, but it's only a 20-25 watt amplifier inside of that receiver. So it wouldn't do much for these speakers here. Now, also on the Vandersteen Model 2, you have separate adjustments for mid-range and tweeter. Most of the time these were like, I don't know. They were there for a reason, but I never use them much. I normally have them on 0 dB. Unless you are in a room where you need to do some corrections, then you can use it. I normally say just leave them in neutral or 0 dB, like no plus or no minus, just leave them where they are. And if you need to do some corrections, you can use it, but just leave it the way they are. So what is the final verdict of the Vandersteen Model 2? Well, top-notch speakers with top-notch sound, top-notch build quality, and a pretty cool design. But they were quite expensive back in the 70s and 80s, and they're quite expensive today. If you buy the Model 2 Signature Series that they have today, they will run you about $2,700 per pair. And back in the 80s and 90s, I think they were like, $1,200 a pair. And in the 90s, I think they were like $1,800 a pair. And I haven't found a price for them, what they cost new in the 70s, but probably $600, $700, $800, $900 in the 70s. So they were quite expensive, and they are quite expensive today too. The only drawback is that I feel and see is if something happened, and this is just strictly speaking from speaker technician point of view, if something should happen to these speakers, let's say you need to refoam the woofers, or change out the tweeter, or do something with a mid-range, or do some crossover work, it is a nightmare if you haven't done it before. And you can, if you've never done it before, you can run the risk of damaging the speakers fairly easy. There is a whole operation on how to get to the drivers without destroying or damaging anything. And trust me, if you've never done it before, don't do it. Take it to someone professional who know how to do it. And make sure that they also know, because hey, I tell you, it's not just for anyone to deal with these speakers here. These do not have speaker grills that come off easily. You can buy, I mean, if something happens to the sock, and the sock is the whole speaker grill that goes around the whole thing. If something happens to that, you can order new socks. That's not a problem. However, the problem is to change it out the old one with the new one. It is something that's going to take you a good, if you do it properly, 45 minutes, an hour per speaker. And there is some work involved into it. And you basically have to take the speaker that you see here now, right there, the way you see it. You kind of have to take the bottom and the top and everything off and apart. And you have to take everything else apart. And there is some work that goes into it. And once you get off the old sock, or socks, and you put on the new sock, there's still a lot of work after that. So I want to say at minimum, for a trained person who knows what he's doing, you're looking at an hour per speaker minimum. If you've never done it before and you don't know how to do it, I suggest don't do it, because you're going to either spend a lot of time and build up a lot of frustration and possibly damage something. And when I say damage something, if you don't know how to do it, you might make nicks and scratches and create damages to the wood that would not be nice to look at. So if you have Vandersteen Model 2, like you see here, and you need to do something with them, put the speakers in a car, take them to a professional, and let them do it. If you feel that you are a seasoned speaker repair dude, well, and you feel comfortable about doing it, then you can go ahead and do it. But if you don't feel comfortable doing it, don't do it. That's my advice. These are not just some regular speakers that you can take the grill off, screw the woofers out of. These includes a lot more work. These grills, as we call the socks here, do not come off unless you do a whole bunch of things before. And it's all about removing, like from one speaker, you have to remove the wooden top, the bottom wood there, and the top wood there. And there is something that goes into doing that. And once you get that off, then you have to start removing things underneath the wood to get the sock loose. And you also have to loosen up these and do that. And when you get the sock, the new sock, if that's what you're going to change, nothing is cut to fit except for the length. So you have to cut out this part, but you can't just cut a hole, because the way you stretch things, so you have to know what you're doing. That's the only drawback about speakers like that. And when they build them this way, is if something happens, it's a little bit more work. A regular dude, an average Joe, probably won't have any problems with regular speakers like this that has a removable grill. and you can screw the drivers out, take the drivers to someone, or you can refoam them yourself or whatever, or replace a tweeter or a mid if that's what you want to do. Because it's fairly easy. You screw it out and you screw in a new one. These, I tell you, is not that easy. It's quite a work, and if you don't know what you're doing, don't do it. Don't do it. So overall, if I'm going to roll the dice, now dice has from 1 to 6, and the 6 is the best. Where do these speakers rank? Design, build quality, and all that stuff. If these were new, and you can get them new, I want to give them 6. They're pretty nice, and they're pretty decent speakers. Pretty nice design. I like the driver layout in them. I like how they're built up. I like how they are constructed. I like the thought behind it and how they built them. Sound quality, I want to give it a 5.5. So they're pretty close to being pretty darn good and perfect. But that's for the price that you pay. So yes, to me, these are very, very, very good speakers. Now, value. What would I value them at? Well, value is like so hard to deal with, guys. But I've been looking online. I've been checking out what sales have been and what you can expect to find. And what I have found online is that you find a lot of crap. Speakers that needs refoam, speakers that have had changed out drivers, that doesn't have original mids, maybe have not original tweeters, and so on and so on. I see these listed without the socks because people have removed the socks. And they are listed from anywhere between $350 for the pair up to $1,200 for the pair. If you can find a complete set like I have here with original drivers, the metal bases, remember the metal base was optional. If you can find a complete pair that has the original drivers and in working condition, you will always find some nicks and knacks. There will always be some cosmetics, so don't pay too much attention to that. That can be fixed if you want to. But what would the value be on something like this? I would value a pair of speakers like this for somewhere between $750 and $1,000, depending on the grade of cosmetic condition, of course. I have valued these at $899. That's my asking price. Would I take $750 for them if someone walked through the door and offered that to me? Sure, I would take $750 for them. Would I go any lower? No. Just because if you want to buy them new today, they're $2,700. And if you see what the other ones are listed for, they have missing socks, not original drivers. There may be 1 or 2 drivers that are not originals. And in worse shape and worse condition than these, not having the metal base, stuff like that, and they're listed for $350, $400, $500 for the pair. Yeah, I think my asking price of $899 is fair. And like I said, if someone comes to the door, I would take $750 because I have a small shop and I depend on the room because I get things in almost weekly, and I have things in the back. I have things in storage units that I would like to have in here, but I don't have room for it. So that's why I would take $750 for them. But $899, I think it's a fair price. Like I said, if you can find them in complete condition, in fairly nice condition, somewhere between $750 and $1,000 would be a good, valuable point. And we're then talking about, of course, what I consider to be the insurance value. You have to remember, I am also an appraiser of electronics and speakers. And I've done that for many years. And I've been hired many times by insurance companies to do appraisals. So when I give you a value, I always give you the insurance value and replacement value. And that also kind of reflects the sales value in today's market. So there you go. I hope this was some good information that you can bring with you if you come across these speakers. Don't be afraid to jump on them. If you need to have some speaker drivers repaired, if you live close to Memphis, contact me. I'll do the work for you, because I know how to deal with these speakers and how to fix them and how to do this without damaging them. If you need new socks, I can probably get you new socks for them. Yeah, if you come across the Vandersteen Model 2, don't be afraid to buy them. They're good speakers. I absolutely recommend them. And I mean, I didn't buy these specifically by themselves because I bought them in a storage unit. So I didn't pay one certain price for these. I bought a big bundle of stuff. But if you're going to buy a pair of these, and if you buy them and you come across them and someone is selling them for $300, jump on it. $400, jump on it. $500, jump on it. $600, jump on it. Anywhere between $750 and $1,000, jump on it if the condition is good and if the original drivers are there. If they don't have original drivers, you can still buy them because you can buy the drivers on eBay. But then you need to start haggling on the price. You don't want to pay. Let me put it like this. If you come across a pair of these and one or two drivers are missing or have been replaced with some other types of drivers, you want to stay under $500 regardless. And as far below 500 as you can come. That's your haggling thing. You tell the seller that, hey, you changed the drivers, they're not original anymore. I can get a pair of original ones for $500, $600, $700. But if I'm gonna now replace the unoriginal drivers back to originals, I have to go online and buy them. I have to do the work. I probably have to send the speakers away to someone to do it. So then you haggle on the price. $200-$300 for something that is not original and maybe that needs socks is a good place to start. Up to $400 is a good place. But if you've come across them like this, in original condition, in fairly good condition, cosmetically, I say anywhere between $750 and $1,000 is a fair price. So there you go. And if you can get the metal base with them, that's a big plus. Because most of the time they are not there. They're either missing or not around at all. So the metal bases means that you get the speakers up from the floor, you protect the wood on the bottom, and they give the speaker a little tilt backward. I don't know if you can see it, but it gives the speakers a little bit of a tilt. So you want to get the bass. I don't have the spikes, as I said, so I have to go out and try and find some spikes. I have one spike. There was one. I put it somewhere. I think it's in my truck. So I have to find, there's 3 on each, 2 on the front and 1 in the back. So there's a total of 6 spikes. So I have to find something that is the same spikes that have the same diameter on the screwing and the thread and stuff like that. But that's probably fairly easy to find. Well, guys, this turned out to be a long video, but these were the Vandersteen Model 2, and I hope you enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward to get some more stuff in here and some more high-end stuff, because what I have had so far has been like mid-range, mid-fi stuff, you know, except for maybe the Techniques, who kind of like was hovering between mid hi-fi and hi-fi or high-end. Yeah, the Vandersteens are absolutely in the higher end class of the 70s. So it was very entertaining and very exciting for me to get them in and have them tested. And I really like them. Our people who know me for Cerwin-vega reasons. Let me tell you right away, these cannot be compared to Cerwin-vega at all. These have better sound quality than Cerwin-vega. Most of the Cerwin-vegas that I have heard, except for maybe one or two models. But Cerwin-vega has, of course, way more bass and way more attitude. These are more laid back and are more towards sound quality and linearity and all that stuff, and are built on a different sound, a different philosophy of sound. Let me put it that way. Okay? Talk to you later, guys.